focused on climate. The example is if you build an oil well, if you build a gas or oil refinery, you're going to have that for the next 30 years. Phil, you got a question? I'm watching on TV a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You noted your disappointment with Chinese actions on climate in Rome, and also the lack of willingness for Chinese President Xi Jinping to show up at either the G20 or COP26. But I wanted to ask more broadly, when you assess where things stand right now in U.S.-China relationships after your first 10 months in office, your diplomats have had difficulty engaging in a substantive manner with some of their counterparts. You have a Chinese military that has tested a hypersonic missile this summer and is building its nuclear capability. What is your general assessment of where things stand, and are you concerned that the potential for armed conflict has grown over the course of your first 10 months in office?
Well, let me start off by addressing the first part of, if not the question, the statement. And that is that I indicated that China and Russia not showing up in Saudi Arabia was a problem. We showed up. We showed up. And by showing up, we've had a profound impact on the way I think the rest of the world is looking at the United States and its leadership role. I think it's been a big mistake, quite frankly, for China, and with respect to China not showing up. The rest of the world is going to look to China and say, what value added are they providing? With regard to the more profound question about, am I worried about an armed conflict or some that accidentally occurring with China? No, I'm not, but I have had, as I've said before, and I think we've talked about this, Phil, but I may be mistaken, I think, as I've said, I look at China, and I've had hours of conversations with Xi Jinping, both in person when I was vice president and since I've been president, at least 5 or 6 hours worth of conversations on the telephone. And I'm going to be having a virtual summit with him. I've made it clear, this is competition. It does not have to be conflict. There is no reason there need be conflict. Yeah, Peter?
Mr. President, you're touting on this visit your $1.75 trillion plan that includes climate, but your party is still not united behind it. Senator Joe Manchin yesterday called it budget gimmicks, shell games, and a recipe for economic crisis. Today he said he never signed off on the framework. So do you have a specific commitment from Senator Manchin to support your Build Back Better bill, yes or no, and how do you respond to those criticisms? And I have a quick follow-up.
Number one, I'm not going to talk about the specifics of my conversations. He will vote for this if we have in this proposal what he has anticipated, and that is looking at the fine print and the detail of what comes out of the House in terms of the actual legislative initiatives. I believe that Joe will be there. With regard to the issue of whether or not he thinks that he's worried about this being inflationary or going to be negative impact on the economy, I think that I've made it clear to Joe, and will continue to, and we will, that as I've apologized for repeating it, Peter, but 17 Nobel laureates on economics said it's going to lower inflation. I understand that Joe is looking for the precise detail to make sure nothing got slipped in terms of the way in which the legislation got written that is different than he acknowledged he would agree to. But I think we'll get this done.
Well, you mentioned the word inflation there. You recently said you have no short-term answer to bring down gas prices. But as you know, it's not just gas prices now. Rents are up. The cost of everyday items are up. Inflation in the U.S. is at a 13-year high. So when specifically should Americans expect those prices to come down?
Well, look, first of all, the significant reason why prices are up is because of COVID affecting the supply chain. I mean, I know I'm not trying to be instructive. I know you know this. If you take a look at, gas prices, and you take a look at oil prices, that is a consequence of, thus far, the refusal of Russia or the OPEC nations to pump more oil. And we'll see what happens on that score. This Thanksgiving, we're all in a very different circumstance. Things are a hell of a lot better, and the wages have gone up higher, faster than inflation. For example, one of the reasons why I decided to talk about the need to deal with the operation and the gouging that occurs in some of the pricing of beef and chicken and other things is that that's why I think that's why I indicated to you we're going to look at whether or not there's a violation of antitrust laws and what they're doing. So there's a lot to look at, but the bottom line is that I think and anyone who would prefer, as bad as things are in terms of prices hurting families now, trade this Thanksgiving for last Thanksgiving. Jen Epstein, Wall Street Journal. Excuse me. I beg your pardon.
Some of the commitments you made here won't happen unless Congress passes future legislation. How do you convince Republicans and even some Democrats to get behind more spending if they look at this conference and say, China isn't meeting these global goals, Russia doesn't intend to meet these global goals, India doesn't plan to, why should we?
Because we want to be able to breathe and we want to be able to lead the world. Look, I mean it sincerely. I think, presumptuous of me to say, talk for another leader, but the fact that China, trying to assert, understandably, a new role in the world as a world leader, not showing up, come on. The single most important thing that's gotten the attention of the world is climate. Everywhere. From Iceland to Australia, it just is a gigantic issue. The same with Putin and Russia. His tundra is burning. He's in a literally the tundra is burning. He has serious, serious climate problems, and he is mum on the willingness to do anything. If you take a look at what economy is growing, the United States. It's growing. It presents a gigantic opportunity, an opportunity to, in a sense, press the restart button and move in a direction that I think the vast majority of countries, and look, I'm sure you interview other world leaders that are here, the vast majority think this is an opportunity. They're not quite sure exactly what to do, exactly how to do it. Not that I have all the answers, I'm not implying that, but they know that. They know that growth rests in dealing with the economy in a way that affects the whole notion of what we're going to do about climate change. I'm sorry, let's try the real Wall Street Journal.
Thank you very much. We are the real Wall Street Journal. Mr. President, you tweeted earlier asking Virginia and New Jersey residents to vote. Democrat Terry McAuliffe is struggling in a state that you won by 10 points. Do you see his problems as a rebuke of your presidency? And could this signal your real losses for Democrats in the midterms?
We're going to win. I think we're going to win in Virginia. And you're reporting it being close. The race is very close. So it's about who shows up, who turns out. And granted, I did win by a large margin. But the point of the matter is that I think that this is going to be, we all knew from the beginning, this is going to be a tight race. But look, the off year is always unpredictable, especially when we don't have a general election going on at the same time. I don't believe, and I've not seen any evidence that whether or not I am doing well or poorly, whether or not I've got my agenda passed or not, is going to have any real impact on winning or losing. Even if we had passed my agenda, I wouldn't claim we won because Biden's agenda passed. I think it's going to get down to, as you all know, turnout. And I think that based on what I have heard so far, it's awful hard for me to be prognosticating, which I don't like doing as president anyway, from overseas. But I think, I hope that every eligible voter in Virginia and New Jersey shows up and votes. And the more of them that do, the better off I think our chances are. And I think we're gonna win. on whether or not what the climate impact is on that. So I think, look, this is there's a reason for people to be worried. I'm worried.